What if I told you that BMW just built a car that can make a Lamborghini owner question their life choices? What if I told you this machine costs less than a Huracan, but delivers more drama than a Fast and Furious movie? And what if I told you that after spending 3 days with the 2025 BMW M8 Grand Coupe competition, I found something that will completely change how you think about four-door supercars forever? But here's the thing that's going to blow your mind, and I'm not talking about the 617 horsepower or the fact that this thing can hit 60 miles per hour faster than you can say, holy. No, what I found goes way deeper than numbers on a spec sheet. It's something BMW's engineers did that even they probably didn't fully realize would create this level of automotive magic. And before you think this is just another car review where I tell you about leather seats and cup holders, let me stop you right there. What happened during my first drive made me pull over on the side of the highway and just sit there for 5 minutes, trying to process what I had just experienced. My passenger, who owns a 911 Turbo S, looked at me and said something that still gives me chills. But I'm getting ahead of myself. See, there's a hierarchy in the automotive world that most people don't understand. At the top, you have your hypercars, your McLarens, your Ferraris, your Koenigsegg's. These are the gods of the automotive world. Then you have your supercars, your Lamborghinis, your Aston Martins. Below that, you have high-performance luxury cars, and that's where most people would put the M8. Most people would be dead wrong. What BMW has done with the M8 Grand Coupe competition is something that defies traditional automotive categories. They've created a vehicle that exists in its own space, and that space is about to become very crowded because every other manufacturer is now scrambling to figure out how BMW pulled this off. The moment you approach this car, something feels different. It's not just the way it looks, though we'll get to that in a second, it's the energy it radiates. You know how some people just have presence when they walk into a room? This car has that, but amplified by about 1,000%. The front fascia doesn't just grab your attention, it demands respect. Those kidney grills aren't just design elements, they're statements of intent. The LED headlights don't just illuminate the road, they seem to cut through reality itself. And when you walk around to the side profile, that's when BMW wasn't playing games when they designed this thing. See, most four-door cars, even fast ones, still look like four-door cars. They're compromised, they're practical, they're trying to be two things at once and succeeding at being neither. The M8 Grand Coupe competition throws that entire philosophy out the window and says, what if we made a supercar that just happened to have four doors? The roofline flows like liquid mercury. The fender flares suggest power that's barely contained. Those 20-inch wheels aren't just holding up the car, they're making a promise about what's about to happen when you press the right pedal. And the rear end? The rear end is where BMW's designers went absolutely nuclear. Those quad exhaust pipes aren't just functional, they're psychological warfare. The diffuser doesn't just manage airflow, it announces that this car takes physics as a suggestion rather than a law. And that subtle spoiler integration, it's so perfectly executed that it makes other manufacturers' efforts look like they were designed by committee. But here's where things get interesting, and this is where that hierarchy I mentioned earlier starts to crumble. Most people judge a car by how it looks standing still. That's amateur hour. The real test is what happens when you open the door and slide into the driver's seat. The moment you settle into those M Sport seats, and these aren't just seats, they're command centers, your entire perspective shifts. The carbon fiber trim isn't just decoration, it's a reminder that weight is the enemy, and BMW is winning the war. The steering wheel doesn't just turn the car, it connects your nervous system directly to the front wheels. And then there's the shifter. In a world where everyone's going to paddle shifters and dual clutch automatics, BMW kept a traditional automatic, but programmed it like it has a PhD in aggression. When you put this thing in Sport Plus mode, the transmission doesn't just change gears, it attacks them. But we haven't even started the engine yet, and this is where that thing I mentioned earlier starts to reveal itself. You press the start button, not turn a key, press a button, because keys are for peasants, and something magical happens. The 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8 doesn't just start, it announces its presence to everyone within 3 blocks of radius. But here's the weird part. It doesn't sound like any BMW V8 I've ever heard before. Most BMW V8s have this sophisticated, refined note. They're powerful but polite. They'll clear their throat before they roar. This engine sounds like it was raised by wolves. It has this deep primal growl that seems to come from somewhere deeper than the exhaust pipes. It's like BMW's engineers found a way to give an engine a personality transplant. And when you rev it in park, which you absolutely will do, don't even pretend you won't, the sound that comes out is so addictive that I found myself doing it at every red light, much to the annoyance of everyone around me. But here's the thing. I didn't care. When you're driving 617 horsepower of German fury, other people's opinions become remarkably unimportant. Now here's where that revelation I mentioned starts to take shape. Most powerful cars are powerful in a straight line. They'll pin you to your seat when you floor it, they'll make impressive numbers on a dyno, and they'll win bench racing arguments at carmates. But when you take them to a twisty road, when you really try to use all that power, they fall apart. They understeer. They feel heavy. They remind you that physics still exists. The M8 Grand Coupe competition does something different, something that shouldn't be possible for a car that weighs over 4,400 pounds. When you point it at a corner and press the throttle, it doesn't just turn, it transforms. The all-wheel drive system doesn't just distribute power, it redistributes reality. I was on this mountain road in Colorado, the ones that snake through the mountains like they were designed by someone who understood that driving should be an art form, and I decided to see what this car could really do. This was day 2 of my test, and I thought I had the M8 figured out. I thought I knew what it was capable of. I was wrong. There's this one corner, a tight right-hander that drops down about 50 feet over maybe 200 yards. It's the kind of corner that separates the pretenders from the contenders. I've taken this corner in everything from Porsches to McLarens, and they all require a certain amount of respect, a certain amount of careful throttle management to avoid upsetting the chassis. I came into this corner at about 40 miles per hour, faster than I probably should have been, but slower than I could have been. I turned in, expecting the typical heavy car behavior, expecting some understeer, expecting to have to manage the power carefully to avoid upsetting the chassis. Instead, the M8 just turned, like it weighed half what it actually weighs, like the laws of physics had been renegotiated specifically for this car. The rear wheels didn't just follow the fronts, they actively rotate the car through the corner. The steering didn't just communicate what the front wheels were doing, it telegraphed every detail about what all 4 contact pads were experiencing. And here's where the part that made me pull over afterwards. When I applied power coming out of the corner, the car didn't just accelerate, it launched. But not in that controlled tail-happy way that makes you pucker up and pray. It launched with precision, with intent, like it knew exactly where I wanted to go and had already calculated the most efficient way to get there. And that's when it hit me. That's when I realized what BMW had actually accomplished here. They hadn't just built a fast 4-door car, they hadn't just put a big engine in a luxury chassis and called it a day. They had somehow managed to create a car that thinks faster than you do. The iDrive system in this car isn't just all-wheel drive, it's artificial intelligence applied to grip management. It's monitoring wheel speed, steering angle, throttle position, brake pressure, and about 50 other variables 1,000 times a second, and it's making micro-adjustments that happen faster than human reflexes can even register. But here's the genius part. It doesn't feel like a computer is helping you out. It feels like the car just naturally has supernatural abilities. It feels like BMW's engineers found a way to cheat physics without getting caught. And this is where we need to talk about what this means for the automotive landscape, because what BMW has done here is going to force every other manufacturer to completely rethink their approach to high-performance 4-door cars. See, for years, the formula was simple. Take your regular sedan, add power, stiffen the suspension, throw some bigger brakes on it, and call it a day. The results were predictable, fast in a straight line, compromised everywhere else. Sure, they were quicker than the base model, but they weren't really sports cars. They were powerful sedans pretending to be something they weren't. The M8 Grand Coupe competition is a paradigm shift. It's not a sedan that's been made sporty. It's a supercar that happens to have 4 doors and a usable trunk. The distinction matters more than you might think. because it affects everything about how the car behaves, how it makes you feel, and what it's capable of accomplishing. When you're driving this car in anger, and by anger, I mean the kind of driving that makes your passenger question their